and welcome back to the podcast. For those of you who are new around here, my name is Ruth, and I started this podcast to amplify the voices of women in leadership, the good, the bad, and the funny. So today's episode is all about being a Volt. I love this term. It's a term that an ex-colleague used to use all the time, and I think it just explains so much. It just sums it up, right? And I think that there is the requirement a lot of the time when you are in leadership to there's a line, I would say, that you walk. I think whether you're in leadership or not within the workplace, I think there's a line between what you hold in and you don't share, all the way through to the gossiping. So I've done an episode about gossiping before. So if you haven't seen that, I'll link it down below. And I think there's a big spectrum, isn't there, between being a Volt and then all the way through to gossiping. And I think sometimes you move up and down that line. For me, one of the big considerations is the intent behind the information sharing. So I always find, like, if somebody is oversharing information with me, I always wonder, why are they giving me that information? Why are they sharing that information with me? Do I need to know it? And to be confident to say, I think I've got a line that says, I'm struggling to connect the dots between this information that you're sharing with me and if there's any actions for me. Because I think it then forces the person to think about why they're sharing this information, and are they actually just gossiping, or are they sharing this information because it is really helpful? And then there's a level of things where I think sometimes people keep too many things in and then they don't share anything, and then when something happens, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that. Or so I think there's also, you can be at the other end, and I think a lot of the time it's about you knowing and judging the circumstances and knowing when to share information. I often ask probing questions. So I'll often ask loads of open questions, like, do we have this, or do we do this as an organization, or what's our view on this? If I know information that I don't necessarily want to share, then I'll just ask open questions, because then I haven't shared the information. I've just gauged if the people already know. And then if it comes up through conversation, because through the prompting questions, then it comes up in conversation through the prompting questions that I haven't overshared, if that makes sense. So kind of, in a way, testing if they already knew the information or already have a view on the information. Obviously, there's some things that you just have to keep confidential, like confidentiality and stuff like that. Like, you just have to do what you need to do. But in regards to being a Volt, I also think leaders, anybody, but because this podcast is about women in leadership, I think we have a real duty to make sure that we are not oversharing with people for our own needs. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. We need to make sure we're not sharing information with somebody, especially somebody who reports into us, for a reason that's fulfilling our own needs. At the end of the day, as a leader, as a manager, or wherever you sit in the hierarchy, if you have people reporting into you, they need to feel that their manager is safe and complete and not fragile. And if they feel that their manager is not safe, is incomplete and fragile, you run the risk of junior staff sitting with things that they shouldn't be sitting with, that are way above their pay grade, be it general information, be it client information, be it risk. I've seen in organizations where people feel like their manager is vulnerable, so they don't take the hard stuff to their manager, which means they then go home and they're sitting with that risk. That's a risk to them, that's a risk to the manager, and it's a risk to the organization and the communities that we serve. So I think that you have to also question what information you're sharing with your team and why you're sharing it. And I think you also have to question whether you're creating an echo chamber as well. I won't go too much into echo chamber in this podcast because I do want to do another episode on it. But I think you have to really be careful that you're not creating that echo chamber with your peers. So all of that to say, I think being a Volt has a time and a place. I think sharing information has a time and a place. A lot of it is on circumstances and the complexities around situations and circumstances and other external factors. But I think that a good place for us to start is thinking about, why would I share this information? Is it my story to tell? Should I share this information? Are people at risk, be it participants or employees? Is the organization at risk? Is our finances at risk? Is there reputational risk here? Am I just gossiping because, I don't know, misery needs company? Am I just gossiping because I want to find a common ground with people? Am I just talking because I actually don't have enough work to do? So, you know, I'm just going to be loose lips, Lucy for the afternoon. Who knows? But I think we all have a duty of care to think about how and why we share information. So comment down below, what are your thoughts on being a vault? Have you been in a situation where you've been a vault for too long? Have you been involved in a situation where maybe you should have been a vault for a little bit longer? And let's really get this conversation going. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.